I'm going to make a boat propeller. Note in the bottom left of screen there are some shortcut keys. So if I press something like letter A, you'll notice that they display and you know what key I just pressed. So I'm going to delete that cube. I'm going to change to right orthographic view. I'm also going to increase my viewing area slightly. I'm going to put my 3D cursor to the origin. So press the space bar, type cursor, and I'm going to read and look for snap cursor to center. And so my 3D cursor is right in the center there. I'm now going to insert my reference image. Go to Shift A, empty image, and you can either rotate R, Y 90, push enter, or over here earlier there was a tick box that says rotate to view. I'm going to now put in, just looking over the right hand side, add my image. So go to where you have your propeller image. There's my screenshot which I took for my propeller. I'm going to bring that into the center as best I can, and I'm going to rotate that, and if I rotate this way it's going to rotate from that corner point. It's a little bit of a pain, so if I change the rotating style to the median point, it should rotate, nope, not really median point, the 3D cursor, and that's going to allow my image to rotate from the center. I've rotated it so that one of the propeller blades is straight up at the top, and that's what I'm after. I'm just going to be modeling the circle to begin with and then the blade. So Shift A, add in a circle, and before you change anything we need to adjust the vertices. I want a number that divides easily into 360 degrees, so I'm going to choose 36 and push enter. Now I'm going to change the scale of that circle down a bit and rotate it in the y-axis. R, Y, 90, enter. They don't show for some reason on the casting keys. S to scale, approximately the right size. Edit mode, pushing tab to go into the edit mode, and I'm going to extrude and scale. You might notice that that's very dark. That's because it's inside out for some reason, so I'm going to flip the direction. Spacebar, type flip, and choose flip normals, and so they have now changed to the regular color. Hold down Alt and click in the center, and that gets a ring select. E to extrude, S to scale, E to extrude, S to scale, E to extrude, S to scale, and that'll be useful for later. So the next thing I'm going to do is adjust the position. So when I rotate, you'll notice this circle that I've made is flickering. That's because it's in the same place as the empty image. So I'm going to G for grab, X for x-axis, and pull it forwards just enough so that they don't interact strangely. Back to right orthographic view by pushing 3. I'm going to go to wireframe. I'm going to push Z to do that. It's the key, shortcut key. Now I'm going to rotate this so this line here, that one, lines up with the edge, and hopefully that will line up a little bit better as well. Rotate, and that's close enough for my purposes. Now I'm going to use the knife tool, and I'm going to cut, and I'll fix this cut up later. Cut once there, about there, and push enter. I'm just going to cut around and I'll line up that one. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's quite handy if it is though. Just make the best judgment you can. And click and push enter. Move around a bit more. Careful when you are connecting these cuts. When you do push it, K for knife cut tool, you'll notice when I hover over a line that goes green, when I hover over a vertice, the green dot has a red ring around it, so check for that. So in wireframe mode, I've essentially done some cutting so I could see through. What I'm interested in now is separating this blade. So I'm going to go to face select. I'm going to use circle select mode and highlight the blade. I'm going to separate that. So I'm going to push the spacebar, type separate, S-E-P, that's enough. Separate and choose by selection. That is now a separate object. Up here in the list I have my circle, which in object mode I can show and hide. Here's my the blade, and there's the circle. So bring them back. I'm interested in the main circle part for now. I don't need any of this part here anymore, so I'm going to highlight all of that and delete it. Be careful not to delete any of the middle part. X to delete and choose faces. So this circle is the blade, circle.001, so I'm going to rename that BLADE, and the circle there I'm going to call center. Tab into edit mode, and I want the blade. Tab into edit mode. I'm going to do a few things to this blade, pushing N to get rid of this menu. I'm going to put in some modifiers. So under the spanner, add modifier. First thing I'm going to do is I'll do that later. I'm going to do something quite essential, highlighting that whole part, and I'm going to apply some rotation. So that's Control A, and it does nothing in edit mode, so it has to be object, Control A, apply rotation and scale. I won't do it just yet. I want you to see I've got various different numbers around here which will change when I do that. Control A, apply rotation and scale, and they will all go back to 0s and 1. That's needed for something a little later. The origin of this object is here in the center, so if I later go to rotate this, it rotates around that center point. That's quite essential. I'm going to insert Shift A and empty, and just choose plane axes. So that's put in this big plus in the middle here, and rather than having that empty 001, I'm going to change that to a name that's easily identifiable. So I'm just going to call that AAA, because I've seen that in other tutorials and it works really well, and it gets it to the top of a list for a little bit later on. Back to my blade editing. I'm going to give it a little bit of shape. So I'm going to go to vertex select, I'm going to grab that vertex on the tip and I'm going to pull it in that red or x-axis direction. I'm going to turn on an editing thing, because if I pull this, it's only pulling one vertex. So if I push the letter O and then I hit G for grab, that's affecting the whole part because the circle is too big. So I'm zooming out, G, and that circle too big. So I scroll on my mouse wheel, make it an appropriate size, and then again making sure that I've just got that one selected, G, X, and if I scroll on my mouse wheel, I will adjust how big of an area I'm having in terms of its effect. So that one forward, and over here this one, GX, that one can go back. I have to be careful not to affect the bottom. And then a little bit of a correction here, just looking from the top, GX. And that's okay for now, I think, GX. That'll suit us for our purposes. Okay. Now onto the modifiers. I'm going to add in a subdivision surface, and that'll make it look nice and round, but it will pull away from the edge, so I'm going to put in a loop cut, which probably won't go all the way across. Coming down there. Try C. No, push the letter E, and that will take the edge from the bottom there. And I'll have to add in a knife cut across here. K for knife cut 1, just eyeballing 2, 3, push enter, and K for knife cut 1, 2, enter. I'm going to extend this part. Don't select that way, that's a bad idea. Alt click, E to extrude, S to scale, no, G, turn off proportional editing, pushing O, scale inwards, and that's going inside of that circle. You can't really see it because the circle is in the way, but that scaling in is pulling in towards that center, so I'll just make a slight correction. Show the circle again, back from the front. That's cutting through the reference image, so I'll take that reference image back ever so slightly. Back to the blade. Okay, so that is giving it a nice shape, but it needs a bit more subdivision, so increase that, and that should do it. It has pulled the edge in a little bit, so I'll extend that later, but I'm now going to go to edit mode, over here on the left, shading UVs, and change the faces to smooth, and that will sort some of our aesthetic issues. I'm going to just change that point there and dissolve it. Don't like it. X, dissolve vertice, and I'm going to grab these ones and pull them up. Make sure I've only got those ones selected. Subdivision surface has made it a little smaller. Okay, so that matches well enough. I'm going to give that some thickness. I'm not going to extrude it myself. I'm going to use a modifier, add modifier, and solidify. And the job of solidify is to give it thickness, so you can just keep clicking that until you're satisfied with how thick it is. So that one's way too thick. Just eyeballing it and figuring out what you think is okay, and that'll do for now. Now the next thing that we're going to do is make 3 copies of it. So add modifier again, array, that is making copies of it. So if we scroll down to here, I want to make 3 of them. You can't see them just yet. I'm going to untick relative offset and tick object offset and choose the empty object that I named before, AAA. Now when I rotate this, RX, it's going to spin around. No, it's not. Object RX, it's going to spin around, and eyeballing that's a bad idea. So what we'll do is we'll go over here. You see it, if I go RX, you'll see the number over here on the right changing. Well, that should be 120. And so you can drag it around there like that, or you could just go push escape. RX 120, enter, and it's turned 1/3 of a way around the circle. So I now have 3 propeller blades. The center needs a little bit of work, so we'll do that. Center, edit mode. I'm going to grab that whole part and pull it and the x-axis forward just a bit. Circle select there and come to the side. E to extrude, x-axis, pull back. Going to put in some loop cuts. That's missed a part for some strange reason. Because it's got that little cut there. I'll dissolve that. X, dissolve vertice. Try again. E to extrude, x-axis. That's much better. Put in, no, I won't do it that way. Highlight the whole thing, E to extrude x-axis, and that brings in that whole section there. That looks inside out, so I'll flip the direction again so I can recalculate, and that changes it to the normal grey colour. A few other changes, Control R loop cut, Control R loop cut up the front. I'm going to make this flare out a little bit. So I'm going to scale that a little bit bigger, but only in the blue and green axis. So S for scale, and hold down Shift and push Y, because that is the green axis, so it cannot get bigger in the green axis. Oops, I just got that one wrong. I mean X. Scale, Shift X, get a little bit bigger. So it's going to flare out, and highlight that part, GX, pull out a bit, That's not right. Scale. Don't like that. GX. That's better. Just making some adjustments, making it a little bit harder than it actually is. I'm going to apply some subdivision surface on that. And I will also smooth facing, so shading UVs, smooth faces. I'm going to make that have nice little sections there removed. I'm going to hide that for now. So this is 36, I have to do a little bit of counting. I'm going to go Alt click and deselect that one and that one. And then count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Deselect 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Deselect the next two and check again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Cool, so those are even spaces. I'm going to delete those faces. I'll do the exact same in the back. I have done a little bit of a modification here, so I'll have to do the same sort of at the back. No, just delete those ones. I need that, and I need it to be a bit smaller. That's what's missing. Double tap G, that'll slide it in. Loop cut, Control R. Those are approximately even. Repeat that step that I did before, counting to 10 lots of times. Alt click, deselect those two. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And just check I can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. X, delete faces. Get the ones in the back that match. X and delete those faces. Now what I'm going to do is go edge select and hold down Alt and click. F to fill, I to inset, and then I'm going to left click and then I'm going to go X delete faces. That's given me a little bit of a border, and repeat. F to fill, I for inset, left click, X to delete faces. Alt click, F to fill, I to inset, left click, X delete faces, repeat at the back. F, I, click, X, delete. Alt click, F, I, click, X, faces. Don't move the mouse in this part here. I'll show you it wrong on purpose. F, I, and you move the mouse and it will change. So don't do that. Left click to just undo that. I, and then just click X, delete faces. Then one at a time, Alt click, go to the top here, hold down Shift and Alt and select. Both are selected. Control E, edge, and I'm going to go to bridge edge loop, and so that fills in a bridge through there. Now my propeller blade's cutting in through that. I'll fix that later. 1 and 2, so that's Alt and Shift and clicking. Control E, bridge edge loop, control, highlight, Control E, bridge edge loop. Going to recalculate that to make sure it's all correct. Go back to my blade, tab into edit mode. Looks like that one's actually moved. Going to get these edges and just move them out a little bit so they're inside there and you can't see it and there's no gap. So that's the basic shape. What I'm going to do with my blade is apply these modifiers. Before I do that, File, Save As. You shouldn't leave this as Untitled Blend, but I've done this before. So I'm going to click that and add a number. Apply. Can't do it in edit mode. Object. Apply, apply, apply. There's my blades. All now nice and fancy. My center is a separate part. I'm going to go and highlight all of those so they're both highlighted together. So to do that, 1, Shift click 2, I'm going to join those. Control J. Now